Hello everyone and welcome to another video. Now today I thought we'd test the new 007 First Light on the GTX 1650. This is the 4GB GDDR6 version that launched in 2020, a year after the original GDDR5 version, and this will offer slightly better performance in a lot of games. I apologise for yesterday's confusion with the title, by the way. I said that I was running the game on 14-year-old parts when actually it was a 12-year-old PC with the 4790K and GTX 980. Speaking of the 980 and the 1650 here, will run the game with very similar frame rates, at least with the lowest settings and native resolution. Yeah, we're certainly limited to low here. What didn't help initially is that my 1650 obviously hasn't been repasted since it was first purchased, because it was getting very hot and therefore throttling down towards 1800 megahertz. But as you can see, I don't think repasting this thing is going to make that much of a performance difference. We will do that momentarily because this is getting too hot and a little bit noisy at this point. So repasting one of these single fan 1650s is pretty simple. It just involves removing 6 screws from the back, lifting the shroud and heatsink off of the PCB and just replacing the paste on the chip. As you can see here, this is the old paste, looking pretty crusty now. So back in the game, and just as I expected, yes, no amount of thermal paste is going to fix our performance problems here. Again, with the lowest settings and native resolution, we're seeing about 20 to 25 FPS a lot of the time. Now luckily we can make use of FSR in this one, but let's just finalise with a little bit of native performance gameplay before we move on to any upscaling. I was holding out a little bit of hope that it might get better, but actually it probably got a little worse as that VRAM started to become more occupied. So we'll jump into the menu and switch to FSR Balanced straight away, and just like in yesterday's 980 video, this certainly did help boost the frame rates to above 30 frames per second. At this point we were seeing between 30 and 35. I think I'll have to do a comparison with the 1650 and the 980. Perhaps we'll test both GDDR5 and 6 versions against Nvidia's old high-end card just to see how things hold up. Of course the 1650 is one of the weakest cards still supported. This is running with the latest drivers, version 600 point something. The drivers basically released for this game, and it is nice to see that with a bit of upscaling it will run with playable frame rates, if you consider 30 FPS playable, of course. But I also have to say that, as some of you pointed out yesterday as well, low settings in this one still looks really good. The difference between low, medium and perhaps even high is fairly minimal. This is something we're seeing in a lot of newer games, but that does also mean that dropping to lower settings doesn't always fix performance problems. So you may think that dropping from high to medium or low with a more capable graphics card will improve frame rate, when actually it may not make all that much sense. FSR is certainly the way to go if you have a GPU like this one. Intel XeSS is sometimes available, doesn't appear to be here, at least not yet. I don't know if there are any plans to include it, but FSR generally performs better from what I found on non-Intel and older graphics cards. So if you ever have the option between XeSS and FSR, your card doesn't support DLSS of course, then FSR tends to be the better option to go with anyway. It's the only option we do have here, of course. As we can see, we're also consuming less than 75 watts of power with this GPU. Runs entirely off the PCIe slot, no 6-pin connector required. I do believe some 1650s need a 6-pin, but this one doesn't. In terms of my other specifications today, we should probably mention those. I'm using the 12400F, of course, the legendary 6-core 12-thread socket 1700 i5, and I actually have it paired with 32 gigs of DDR5 at 6000 megahertz. So yeah, I wanted to make sure we could get the absolute most out of the 1650 today, but it doesn't really matter. The RAM's sort of irrelevant here because the GPU is the bottleneck in pretty much every case today, every gameplay example you've seen on screen so far. Now I want to jump into a different scene, this time selecting FSR performance mode, because you might find that there's actually not much of a difference. We're pretty much maxed out as far as VRAM is concerned, and so enabling a more intensive form of FSR, in this case performance, isn't really going to improve frame rates all that much, if at all. to be honest. We'll actually jump back into the menu here and I'll show you what I mean. So that was performance mode. If we go back up to balanced mode, we were running at just under 40 FPS then. Now we're looking at the mid 30s, creeping up towards 40 in some places. Yeah, there really isn't a huge difference here. What I'll do momentarily is actually switch to quality mode as well to see if we can get away with that. So we'll jump back into the options. We only have quality, balanced and performance mode to choose from so far. No ultra performance modes here unless it's hidden away in a secret menu somewhere. But with quality mode, yeah, not advisable really. We can still see at least 30 FPS sometimes, but there will be more dips and drops to the high mid 20s. Not a significant performance boost over native resolution in some places, in fact. I think in certain scenes, FSR performance is definitely the way to go. We could get away with balanced as you saw previously, but I think performance is going to be your best bet for a more continuous or consistent gameplay experience, I should say. Yeah, performance is where you want to be, although you will see the frame rate shoot up towards 60 in some indoor areas with performance mode, like you can see here. It just gives you a nice bit of headroom for when the action starts to heat up and the frame rate starts to drop. Speaking of which, we'll have to mention this next scene because this is sort of what makes everything else perhaps a little bit irrelevant. Yes, I think the card has well and truly given up. 007 has broken the GTX 1650 here. Now I'm not sure if this is just this scene specifically, I'm still pretty early on in the game, but we're running the same FSR performance settings with the lowest graphical options, nothing else has changed, and here we just saw about 15 FPS, sometimes lower. I think I saw it go as low as 12 frames per second. There's a reason I haven't put the average and percentile lows on screen for this video or the previous one, and that is because I'm so early on in the game I can't really give you a definitive answer as to how well this runs on such hardware. If the game is going to continue to perform like this in certain levels, then of course it's not playable on the 1650, but if for the most part it's going to run with at least 30 FPS and you're willing to implement upscaling in order to achieve that, then I guess you could consider it playable, but you may want to rethink your plans if you intend to purchase 007 First Light on this GPU. Yes, may not be worth it anyway if you're hoping to see 60 frames per second, which the 1650 isn't too often capable of these days. But that's been the 1650 versus 007 First Light gameplay experience. Let me know your thoughts down below. Apologies again for yesterday's incorrect title. The parts released in 2014 and therefore I thought they were 14 years old. This heatwave's melting my brain. But anyway, this has been the 1650. Thanks for watching. Let me know your thoughts down below and hopefully I'll see all of you in the next one.